everyone, it's Leanna from Lemon Pattern Making, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how you can print your clothes 3D patterns on your home computer using Adobe Illustrator. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. This is the clothes window, and we have our 2D patterns on the right and our 3D pattern on the left. For my example today, I'm going to be using the Layla underbust corset that I have available in my shop, and we're just going to keep going. So you'll see in the 2D window we have the actual sewing patterns that I have created. I've also laid out a letter size paper, an Arch D size paper, and a print shop size paper, which is just a Arch D but with extended length. You can make it as long as you want. I like to get a good visual of the paper while I'm laying out the pattern, so that way I know how many pieces I can fit on what. I'm going to go ahead and delete the letter size paper because it's too small to work on, and then I'm not printing on a roll today, but I just wanted to give you the example and the visual. I recommend using an Arch D size paper, which is 23 inches by 35 inches as your base, so that way you have the option to send it to a print shop if you wanted, or it's also just a good size to be putting your patterns on anyways. So the first thing that I always do is turn on your grain line so that you can see them in that little information bar. And we're going to go to our segment line tool, and I'm going to redraw those grain lines with just little 2-inch lines. I'm not going to be like super exact with it. I'm just going to redraw the lines just because I don't like the way their grain lines look. They go all the way across and sometimes stick out of the pattern themselves, so I just draw them on the inside myself. Alright, so once all your grain lines are done, you can get a good visual in your 3D window. It really is just putting the grain line going vertical to the floor. The next thing that you're going to want to do is add your seam allowance, which is in your 2D window. You're going to highlight all of your patterns, and you'll see how only those two are highlighted yellow. We want to make sure we highlight all of them until they're all yellow, and then you can go ahead and make your seam allowance whatever you want it to be. For little patterns like this, I like to work with 1/4 of an inch because it works better for me. But I am going to change the center back seam to have 1/2 inch seam allowance. And you can put whatever seam allowance that you want to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the grain lines so they don't get in the way. The next thing that I'm going to do is delete half of the pattern because I don't need to print both sides. Then the next is select your paper, right click and order it and send it to back. That way your pattern sits on top of it. And then we can start positioning our pattern. Always try to put your pattern pieces as close as you can to each other so that way you can save paper. You can even print multiple copies of the same patterns, or if you had like a full garment, you can try to position all your pieces on the paper itself. And so I'm going to go ahead and delete these last ones though because I don't need multiple copies. So once you have your patterns placed as you want them, the important part to do is to add a new fabric so that way it's white, or you can change your color to white, but you have to make the whole thing white, otherwise it will print your pattern in the color that it is. I delete everything but the pattern so that way it's just the pattern by itself. We're going to go File, Export, Adobe PDF, and this will create a PDF of our pattern. So name that whatever you want, save it wherever you want. You're going to go ahead and leave internal lines, base lines and notches, pattern outlines, and seam allowance. Everything else really you don't need. So now that our pattern is on our desktop, we're able to send this file itself to a print shop if we wanted, or we can send it to our own printer. I have a 24-inch printer, so I can just change my paper size to the Arch D and then make sure that the scale is at 100. You don't want it any larger or any smaller because these are the exact measurements that we're using. And we can go ahead and click print, and it'll print on my 24-inch printer. But if you don't have a printer and you don't want to send it to your print shop, we're going to go ahead and open Adobe Illustrator. I highly suggest that you create yourself one of these tile templates, which mine is really big. Just in case I have large patterns, I don't have to keep creating these tiles again. I can always just drag and drop my pattern into it and not have to worry about creating all the little circles and guides and everything again. Let me go ahead and show you how to make one of these. So we will go File and New. Let's just do letter size, create. We're going to zoom out just a smidge. And so we're going to go File, Print. You are going to go to Scaling, and you're going to click Tile Imageable Areas, and you will click Done. Then you will go View, show print tiling, and this is what will show you your print tiles. Go ahead and change your artboard size to fit the tiles, and you can create as many as you want. Like you saw how many mine had, but we'll go ahead and just make a little 4 tile. And then to create your guidelines to help you line up your patterns together, we can just add a new layer. We'll change it to circles, and you can create any shape you want, little diamond notches, little line notches, circles. It's whatever you feel like creating to help you match up your paper better when you're cutting. I'm gonna go ahead and draw some circles. I like to do a circle in a circle, so that way there's 4 lines that I have to line up. You can change the thickness of the line to be thin or thicker. It's really all up to you. These are just the extra guides to help you line up your paper. So I like to place them for sure at all intersections. If you want to, you can add it at the cross intersection. That is completely up to you. It just adds more guidelines for you. All right, so now we have all of our circle guidelines. We can go ahead and go back to layer, and we'll go back to our base layer, so that way whatever we drag and drop in is going to be underneath the circles. So you can drag and drop your pattern into Illustrator, and you can just position it as you see fit. Ours is hanging off at the end, so we're going to change our artboard to accommodate for that, and then we can go ahead and get rid of the bottom 3 rows since we don't need them, and then delete those circles at the bottom since we don't need them either. We'll move this one over here, so that way we have an intersection there. Delete the bottom circles. You can move the circles around so that they don't disrupt your pattern. You can create more just to give you some more help. All of this part is really however you want to help yourself line up your margins better, which as you do this many times, you'll figure out what works best for you. So next you're able to go File, Print, and that'll print on your printer. And once you have your patterns printed out, the next thing that you have to do is just cut off your margins. I always suggest cutting off the right side of your margins only, leaving your left side of the margin so that way you have a base to tape to. Of course, you can use scissors, or if you have a paper cutter, you are welcome to use that. Otherwise, go ahead and trim off all the right sides of your margins, getting as close to the lines as possible. If you have even the smallest amount of space, it can affect the way your pattern pieces together perfectly. So I just always try to get as close as possible to the lines themselves. Then you're going to tape your pattern together by laying over the left side over the right. Line up your circles and your pattern lines and tape it together. I recommend taping the back side as well. Since we didn't type any annotations for this little pattern, I'm just going to go ahead and write a T for top at the top. And that is it. Once you have your sewing patterns cut out, you can create whatever it is that you made in your Clothes 3D software in the comfort of your own home. I hope you found this little demo helpful, and if you have any other questions, please just leave a comment down below and I will try to answer to the best of my ability. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!